Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Monday, April the 12th. And if the clerk would please read the roll.
Councilmember Archibald,
Here.
Councilmember Ashford,
Present.
Councilmember Lamb,
Here.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Here.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Here.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here, and as everybody should have said, so I'm going to say it remotely in Port Huron. So if anybody is any different than in Port Huron, perhaps they can speak up now. If not, I think the clerk will note that you are all remote in Port Huron. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I see a bunch
Yes.
bouncing heads. So I assume that that's all right. Obviously, we didn't plan on having this meeting virtual, but with the conditions the way they are in the county right now with COVID, thought best to continue with our virtual meetings at least through April. So with that, is there a motion for the minutes of March 22nd?
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Ashford. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there any changes to the minutes? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand, will be easier for this one.
Oh,
Okay, then it's unanimous. The minutes are approved as submitted. We do have two presentations tonight that we're going to do, so if the clerk would please read the first one.
Proclamation recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month will be presented to representatives of the St. Clair County Child Abuse and Neglect Council.
Well, seeing as we're doing this virtually, I am going to just paraphrase the proclamation because the person who is receiving the proclamation is none other than our Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, who is Executive Director of the Child Abuse and Neglect Council. So I'll give her that opportunity to say a few words. But we do have a proclamation which states that the Port Huron's children are our future, and whenever one child is abused or neglected, the entire community suffers. It's one of our nation's most serious public health problems, and studies have well documented the link between abuse and neglect and a wide range of medical, emotional, and behavioral disorders, including depression, alcoholism, drug abuse, and juvenile delinquency. So therefore, we are going to declare this month and hereafter in the city and the county under the leadership of the St. Clair County Child Abuse and Neglect Council and its pledge to strengthen our community to prevent child abuse. This month will be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the city of Port Huron on behalf of the entire city council. I will give this to Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, Executive Director of the Child Abuse and Neglect Council after the meeting, but I'm going to let her say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Rep. So normally the month of April, we do a lot of extra activities outside of what we do year round in recognition of Child Prevention Month. Unfortunately, with COVID, our State Representative Association has asked us not to. So we typically do blue ribbons and pinwheels throughout downtown Port Huron and a lot of different activities to raise awareness on child abuse prevention. Not being able to do that, I decided to forego the normal formal speech that I give at this time. And I just want to say two things. First, talk to your children. Know who they're with, where they are, what they're doing. Be very aware of their surroundings, and if something has changed, their behavior, all of those signs that might indicate something might not be right. But talk to your children first and foremost. Explain to them that it's not okay for anybody to do anything that makes them uncomfortable. The best prevention, obviously, is making sure they understand and they can stop it themselves before it starts. But after that, the second thing that I want to touch on real quick is simply, if you notice something, if you see something, if there's a child's behavior is different, if there's that little red flag, if I could give you $1, or I had $1 for every time a parent has come into our office and said, well, you know, there was that red flag, but it was easily explainable, and it is. Normally, in the very beginning, those red flags all individually can be explained away. But when you add them all up and they become consecutive red flags, that's when you know you have a problem. I'm saying trust your instincts. Trust your instinct when the first red flag goes up. And when you see it, if you see something, if something doesn't seem right, act on that. Trust your instincts. Again, if you see something, say something, and help all of us protect our children in St. Clair County. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. We'll move on to presentation number 2.
Police Chief Joseph Platzer will present the annual Police Department report.
Good evening, Mayor, Rapid City Council. Can everybody see my presentation?
I can see you.
Okay. Stand by one.
Okay. I think it's coming. Yep, you're fine now.
All right. Can everybody see that then?
Yes.
All right. So I'll give you a presentation tonight on our annual report. I was able to get every one of you a copy of it about 2 weeks ago. So it's just going to be a quick overview of everything that's in the report. First of all, I want to start off by thanking the men and women of the Port Huron Police Department. Last year with the pandemic and the civil unrest and other things that were thrown our way, the men and women came in every day and did their job with great pride, great dignity, and was able to weather a storm that was, like I say, unprecedented last year. I also want to thank Officer Dwayne Hunger. This is his first year doing the annual report. He was very nervous about how it's going to turn out. It took him several months to get it completed, but he did a very nice job with it. So I'm going to just throw these up here and we'll start. So we had the COVID-19 pandemic again in March, April. We went into a, like I say, unprecedented time with the pandemic, but every day the men and women came in, answered the calls for service, and handled their jobs very professionally. Last year, we had 3 protests in our city that were very peaceful. We participated in the protest, and with our department being transparent, being connected to our community, each protest again was very peaceful and was very successful within the city. Chiefs Community Resource Champions. I'm very proud to say that next Wednesday, the 14th, or excuse me, the 21st, we'll be having our 4th meeting. We've met already 3 times. We've had open, honest discussions. We've been able to solve some problems, and we've been able to move forward with some joint projects, which I'll talk about here in a second. Our community outreach centers, we have one currently up and running at 26th and Manual Street. And we're getting ready to open our second outreach center in about 1 week up on Riverview. Our neighborhoods app and Ring and our blue light project, all that should be up and running by May 1st. Our neighborhood app has been very successful so far. We've actually been able to solve, I think, at least 3 or 4 crimes with participants that have the neighborhood Ring, and the blue light project should be again up and running by May 1st. SC4 training site, with our partnerships with the community resource champions, we've been able to, SC4 has been able to provide us a site where we can do police training. The Milo system, which the council supported, we recently received, and we'll be putting that in the training site probably within the next 2 weeks. We started the professional standards and training sergeant. Sergeant Decker has taken this. He's run the program. We've been able to take our training, which has been always excellent here at the Port Huron Police Department, but he's been able to take it to the next level, and monthly, yearly training that no other departments in this area receive. And then Officer Tycho, we've received a new canine this year, Canine Zeke. They've been in service now for about 4 or 5 months, and I've been happy to report that they're doing very, very well. He's made several large narcotic seizures, and he's been able to track several suspects. So they've been a great asset to our department and the community. So let's talk about our calls for service. We saw a 7.1 decrease in calls for service. I relate that to the COVID. Again, with everything going on, our officers were still out answering calls, but the way we answered calls changed. We were trying to avoid going into houses. We were making more contact with people outside. And if people could report crimes over the phone, we're asking people to call in. So last year, you've seen a decrease in calls for service, a little over 2,000. Crime reports increased though by 1%. And then we'll go through the different reportable crimes here. Criminal sexual conduct. I'm glad to report we saw 13.6, or excuse me, not happy to report, I'm sorry, that we had a 13.6 increase in criminal sexual conduct. But with that, all the suspects were known. Reason why we relate this is that we believe more people were at home, and that with the relationships, that's why we saw the increase there. But there was no CSC suspect running at large for our agencies. Most of these had known perpetrators. Homicides, we saw a 50% increase, unfortunately, in the city. But with the homicides, I am happy to report that all 3 suspects were arrested and are currently awaiting trial for these crimes. Auto theft saw a 3.8% decrease. Arsons saw a 33% increase. We went from 9 to 12. But again, a lot of these arsons, we have known suspects. One of the arsons was a juvenile that set his bed set on fire. One of the arsons was a juvenile that set a tree on fire. And one of the crimes was somebody set a porch on fire. Larcenies, 6.6% decrease. Home invasions, a 10.3% decrease. Malicious destruction of property. We saw an increase in this, but we had a ration of vehicle that had their tires slashed. We had a ration of homes that saw their windows being broken. Again, a lot of this was during the pandemic. Robberies, happy to report we had a 30% decrease in robberies. Charged assaults saw a decrease. Juvenile adult arrests, again, 25% decrease. Traffic violations, 25% decrease. Again, during the pandemic, we had not a lot of vehicles out on the road during that time. Parking violations saw a decrease. But even though we saw less vehicles on the road and we were trying to change how we were operating with our answering calls for service, our officers were still being proactive out there. And even though we saw a 3.4% decrease, we only went from 148 down to 143 drivers that were arrested for operating under the influence of either alcohol or narcotics. A 22% decrease in accidents, again, less people out on the road. Fatal accidents, 100% increase because we went from 1 to 2 last year in the city. Injury accidents, 17.9% decrease. And then our open report saw a decrease also. Prosecution reports, a decrease of 30%. Citizen online reporting, we saw a huge increase here. Why? Because we started our TIP 411 program last year. And that's where citizens could call in complaints, could make reports, and also they could call in tips. And last year we had a lot of tips that were received about subjects that were wanted for crimes, wanted on warrants. And it was very happy to see our citizens being proactive and reporting these crimes to the police department. And we were able to successfully arrest people or solve crimes throughout the city. Vehicle pursuits, we saw a 22% increase with subjects fleeing from officers. Subject control saw a 14% increase. And again, when we look at our subject control numbers, anytime that we arrest somebody and it goes beyond mere handcuffing, we do a subject control incident report. So if we go to put handcuffs on somebody, they pull away, that's a subject control report. And the way that we document our arrest, that is why we see the increase in the subject control for last year. Condition of the subjects at time of arrest, you can go through there. Under the influence, alcohol 38, and the one that decreased just by a little bit was suspected mental illness. We are working trying with a program to see what calls regarding the mental health that we can increase our service to, better give our officers more training, and see what calls we can work with CMH into working jointly on answering these calls to help our citizens. With that, again, I presented you with the annual report a couple weeks ago. That's a quick overview of what occurred in 2020. So far in 2021, we're continuing our training. We've already seen an increase in calls for service with more people coming out. And again, I want to thank the men and women of the Port Huron Police Department for the job that they do every day, being professional, dedicated, and transparent to the citizens of Port Huron.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone on council have any questions for the chief?
I don't have any questions, Pauline, but a great job from all the stats that we've seen. The improvements, and obviously our men and women are doing a great job on the Port Huron Police Department.
Thank
I
you.
agree. We appreciate everything that everyone does. So is there anybody else who has any comments to make?
Mayor Rep, I would just point out that in the last couple of years, the implementation of new technologies throughout the police department, our agency has been on the forefront of it, something I think we can all be really proud on. Whether it's the Ring doorbells, the citizens call in, it's all pretty remarkable. And we're one of the few agencies that are this far along, which is impressive because when I came here in 2014, Chief Platzer still used a rotary phone. So I mean, we're all very proud of the marked progress that has been made to even screen share.
Nice try, James.
Yeah. But it is remarkable. Our agency's at the forefront. I know other city managers and other police chiefs call our chief and our assistant chief to find out how they do these programs because not many people are doing them. So it is something to be proud of.
It most certainly is. No, I'm very proud as well as the rest of the council, proud of our police department. So thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
We will move on with the agenda. Now is public comment time. If there's anyone that's waiting to be recognized, do we know if there is?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have State Representative Andrew Beeler, who will be brought on as a panelist, so you can video see with him as well.
Okay, then he is welcome to go forward.
Good evening, Representative.
Hello,
Good evening. Am I all set to go?
you are. Go right
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rep and council members, for the chance to be here tonight. I was glad I got to see the police report. I was one of the traffic violations that was mentioned earlier, so he was doing a good job there. I appreciate the strict enforcement of parking violations. So thanks again for the chance to be here over this Easter in-district work period. I've been pretty fortunate to have the chance to get around to some of these meetings that I'm just not able to make it to while the House is in session. And it's just great to finally get a chance to come to the city of Port Huron, my hometown, and just provide a little bit of a legislative update. So what I'd like to do is start out with just a little discussion on what the House has done over the last 4 months. Couple major policy initiatives. Then I'll go into where we're headed and some of the topics that we'll be tackling here in the next 8 months, really. And then if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those. So for starters, the first thing that the House did was appropriated COVID relief funding, which was a little over $3 billion of both state and federal money. And we broke that funding down into 3 bins, and much of it was earmarked for those purposes. Number 1 was COVID relief, things like testing supplies and vaccination supplies. Number 2 was school funding, and number 3 was small business relief. And so money was appropriated, as I mentioned, over $3 billion into those 3 bins after a series of line item vetoes, attempted veto overrides, and then reappropriating the money. Just a little bit of that money was left on the table. For whatever reason, the governor chose to not accept about $600 million worth of that funding. So that money still remains. It's still the state's to use, and the House is standing by once again to appropriate that money once the administration feels that it's been appropriated correctly. Number 2 was election reform. There were many bills that were left in the House that were not able to make it through the House, I should say, prior to the end of the last session. Those were very basic steps, things like cleaning up the voter rolls and making sure that our statewide QVF is as accurate as possible in the event that our 2022 election looks similar to the 2020 election, where we see an outsized share of absentee voting. We're all in favor of absentee voting. We just want to make sure that the ballots that are sent out are sent to living, breathing humans who are eligible to vote in our state. And then number 3 was healthcare, which we wrapped up with just prior to coming home for our Easter in-district work period. That was a 15 bill package targeted at 3 different areas: affordability, accessibility, and quality of care. The bill did a lot, or excuse me, the bill package did a lot, and it's expected to change quite a bit when it goes over to the Senate. But broadly speaking, I'm happy to answer questions specifically on the bills if there are any, but broadly speaking, we were working on things like transparency for pharmaceutical companies and pharmaceutical benefit managers. I sponsored a bill on the right to shop, which would allow folks to shop at both in and out of network pharmaceutical drug providers. And other measures like that were really focused on putting the patient at the center of the healthcare process. And as I mentioned, we wrapped up with those 15 bills right before coming home for our in-district work period. What we're doing looking forward, first and foremost, is basically a set of bills, a set of 3 bills that would match up our tax filing deadline with the federal government. So as we know, federal government has moved the tax filing deadline back. And so I'm sponsoring a bill that will move any city income tax filing deadline back a commensurate amount. And so that bill will go through the House this week. It has the administration as well as Treasury support, as well as the Michigan Municipal League support. So we're optimistic that that will be a good policy and a good move in the right direction. And I was told today that that bill will likely be amended to make that law in the event the federal government does this in the future with a change in the countrywide tax filing deadline that will also apply to city and other localities. We're going to continue to push forward with what we are calling an ethics and election reform initiative. And this has a number of different objectives. As I mentioned, trying to clean up our election process here in Michigan, maintaining the same access that we had in previous elections, and really just focusing on cleaning up the process, talking about, providing training to clerks statutorily. So this is not just kind of ad hoc training, but we are actually mandating certain requirements of our clerks so that they have the training they need to run a quick and efficient election. When you look at states across the country, we see some folks that came out with results right away and others who didn't. And we'd like to be one of those states that's seen countrywide as one that runs a smooth and efficient election process here in the state. And then finally, coming full circle, we're expecting more COVID relief dollars to come our way, which will need to be appropriated. And we don't have any reason to believe that the categories of funding will change substantially. So we're expecting to continue to appropriate money for direct COVID relief, schools, and small businesses in the future. So I would expect more information about that as we see Congress and the White House act on that. So that was kind of just a very quick, broad overview, where we've been, where we're going. Happy to answer questions about bills I'm working on or other initiatives that the House has worked on, or any questions broadly. But if not, thank you for your time. And once again, I appreciate the chance to speak tonight.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I gave you, normally under public audiences, we have 4 minutes, but I gave you a little leeway because we don't have anybody else waiting to get on. And I think it's important that we hear what our legislators are doing. So I appreciate the update. Is there anyone on council who has any questions?
Mayor Rep, if I can just quickly say, I just wanted to thank Representative Beeler there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on. And I think it's important that the rest of the council knows, and the public who will watch this inevitably on YouTube. Representative Beeler and Senator Lowers have been in constant contact with the mayor and I over the last several months on a host of these bills. So the income tax bill you heard about that the representative co-sponsored, we were in contact. He asked us, hey, how would this affect you? Is this going to cause an operational issue? And it doesn't. It's very easy for us to do. It's not a big deal at all. It's very helpful to our residents. That type of communication back and forth is just really nice. And I know I appreciate it. I know Mayor Rep appreciates, but I appreciate Representative Beeler and Senator Lauer's taking the time to shoot us a text or a phone call and ask our opinion on how it would affect us. That's nice. So thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much. Okay. As I said, no one else is in the public portal, to my knowledge. No one else is
Mayor.
added in. So I'm going to move on with the agenda.
Mayor,
And we have,
Mayor.
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted, I thought this was a great time for me to say, I want to congratulate our city clerk for running a great election this past season. And I know that'll continue in the future, but it's always timely to do that.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
You hear a lot of criticisms about elections, and we don't have to worry about that here in the city of Port Huron. So we're very grateful.
Would
Yeah,
read
thank you.
between the lines?
Yeah,
Yes.
Councilman Ruiz, I wholeheartedly agree with you. We actually ever had any, any concerns or any issues with our city clerk's office when Sue Childs was here, and now Cindy. I mean, she runs a fantastic ship with working with all the other people that work at the polls and everything. So we are certainly proud of it. And also, I actually serve on the MML elections review, where we review all the policy things coming to our municipalities to see if we're for or against them or whatever. So if there's ever anything in the future that I think really, hits us, I will be bringing it forth to you. But it seems as though the mayor and, Pauline's there also. So, we don't have to double dip, but you can be assured that we are, on top of that. If there's something that we don't like or something, then the league, we weigh in and certainly share our concerns about whatever bill that is being represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor Rep.
Yes.
I believe I saw a gentleman just as I was coming in the building. He didn't realize that the meeting got turned to virtual. And how is it that he raises his hand for public comment via phone? I don't remember what the.
Okay, if they're dialing
9.
in on their phone, they press *9 to raise their hand and *6 to unmute. Do you think that the person was going to call in?
He had his phone on, and there was one phone number in the attendees here, so I'm hoping that he got that.
We do have someone who's monitoring that. I
Okay.
don't believe that anyone has called in, have they?
No, I don't think they're
No.
raising their hand.
Okay.
Okay, he didn't say what it was that he was coming to the meeting for then.
No, I didn't get to catch him I was walking in as he was walking back to his car. So.
Okay,
unfortunately.
okay. Yeah, they just have to, if they just have a telephone, they just call in on that. I don't know if he would have had the agenda. He should have, it's posted. So,
Yeah. Okay.
and so that's unfortunate because I know we said we were going to go back to a regular meeting and that's what our intent was, but then life kind of got in the way. So
Indeed.
here we are. So I hope that if he does end up watching this and did not get the opportunity, that he gets a hold of us in order to find out what the next meeting is in the process for him to speak to us.
Absolutely.
So we will move forward then with the consent agenda. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro
Support.
Tem Archibald, who supported it?
Ashford.
Thank you. Councilmember Ashford. The clerk can take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherek,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, the items on the consent agenda received and filed notification from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission that an application has been received for a new SDM license and new Sunday sales permit at 310 Huron Avenue. Approve the reappointment of Robert Epley and Carissa Wilkins to the McMorran Place Commission for terms to expire April 1st, 2025. Confirm the mayor's reappointment of Edward Brennan to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority with a term to expire April 14th, 2024. And approve the reappointment of Patricia Merkel to the Sister City Commission with term to expire April 12th, 2024. And then we will go to boards and commissions. If the clerk would please read that one.
Receive and file notification from the Planning Commission regarding their decision to deny recommendation of the request to rezone the property generally described as 1017 and 1025 Huron Avenue and 1024 and 1026 Superior Street from an R1 zoning district to a CBD zoning district. Council may choose to not accept the Planning Commission's recommendation and choose to schedule their own public hearing for April 26, 2021 to take action on this matter.
Is there a motion to receive and file?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Lamb. I wonder if perhaps, Mr. Freed, you could do, is David Haynes on the meeting?
Yeah, I'll bring David Haynes on right now as a panelist, Bruce will, but just give you a synopsis. When this came to the Planning Commission, the property is currently office space. And under R1, they can maintain an office space, but this would move it to the full commercial, which should be used for many purposes. And David can explain why the Planning Commission had some issues with that. If he can, I think he's coming online right now. We'll get
I
this.
see his name up there.
There he is.
There I am. Good evening, Mayor Rep and Council. Yes, this was an effort to rezone the 4 office buildings, which are currently zoned R1 and require a special use permit to allow an office in the R1 zone. In rezoning to CBD, it would basically simplify the process for any future use of the property, and basically saving the cost of application. However, the Planning Commission was concerned that by allowing the CBD and all of the uses that are allowed under the CBD zone and C1, that it might be too broad of a use for that location, as it is embedded into the neighborhood of the River Park neighborhood. So that ended up being really the major point of discussion, is the increased use at this location beyond that of an office. We did have the 4 building owners in favor of the rezoning, and Mr. McFarland that owns the properties to the south, Pat McFarland spoke in favor as well. We did have concern from Kathleen Holt, who lives in the neighborhood, and she was again concerned about the higher intense use going to a CBD zone and what that might entail.
David, a quick question just for the council's clarity. So right now it's currently office space, correct?
Correct.
If a tenant changes or an owner changes, but the use doesn't change, do they still have to file a special use permit when it changes hands?
It does if the building goes vacant for a period of time, and then it resets the special use, and they have to come back and file again.
So how long has this building been vacant?
I believe it was vacant for more than 6 months.
Okay, so if it wasn't for that, they,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Is there
And
any-
that was the initial trigger, was a tenant coming forward and making an application for a special use permit. And at the time, we talked internally that this, might be a better process to really have it rezoned to the uses that are to the north and to the west.
So if this goes the way the Planning Commission recommends, will the administration in your office go back and work with that tenant on getting them in there under a special use?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Pemberton, because you are on the Planning Commission, but I understand you might not have been at the meeting, but I just wanted to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I actually spoke with the tenant, and that was I unfortunately was unable to make the meeting because they had switched to in person, and I was in California for work this last week, and so I missed it. However, I basically would. I think there's a fair argument to be had for what the Planning Commission. I believe it was a split vote, and then there's a fair argument for the caution of the CBD district. However, I think I'd like to see this come before us for us to review. I think that there's there's some good points the tenant had with the difficulty of having bought an office building and then having to pay for a special use, possibly get a survey, have some increased costs when they bought a building that its sole use is office space. And so to then have to have a special use for that, general use, I think, it'd be worth us discussing and having that come before us. And so as we come to the end here, I'll move that we choose to not accept the Planning Commission's decision.
Well, at this point, we do have it on the floor as a motion to receive and file. So what would happen is, and Cindy can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to vote on that motion first. And then if it goes down, then you can bring up the motion to have it go
Okay.
to us unless you had jumped in and made that motion to begin with. So
I
'cause
got
it's
you.
not really an amendment to the motion, it's a completely different motion, so you can't stack it on
Absolutely.
top. So,
Okay.
okay, just so you know that. So we'll have to vote on this motion as far as just proceeding and filing, which means we're in agreement with the Planning Commission, if that's the case.
Okay, thanks. for
Does
clarification.
anyone have any comments?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Go
I'm
ahead.
looking to see if there's anything in between. And I know I talked to James, but for the public or in case the tenant or anyone that's interested in this issue is online or listening or going to watch later, I'd like maybe to further explore what it is now and that the next step would be that CBD. There's nothing in the middle that would allow them to have office use, not have to get a special permit, but yet not become a full commercial business district.
So I think the rub here is that the building was vacant for a while and therefore it kind of reset special use, because it does seem kind of odd. You're buying an office building, it's clearly an office building, and now you bought it and you have to go through a special use permit to have it continue being an office. So I think what I would advise, no matter which way this goes tonight, is I will direct David in the morning to go back and to review our ordinance and see if some of these things aren't wonky and silly that need to be looked at, and then maybe bring some recommendations to the Planning Commission on some zoning changes. 6 months sometimes in a vacant office building seems kind of a short period of time. Even a year seems kind of short. So I think that's something that's a reasonable request for David's team to bring back for review the Planning Commission to change, because we find things that don't sometimes make sense in our ordinances, and this could be an example of an office building still being an office building, having to reset the clock after 6 months, and understandably so would frustrate a new property owner. So I'm not sure if this is the remedy to it, or it's actually a more of a broader zoning ordinance change that David could bring to the Planning Commission, so this doesn't happen again, because it does seem kind of silly.
I think that obviously during this time too of COVID, you've had different uses of office buildings. People are not using them like they used to. So I don't know if that had any bearing in this case or not, that left it vacant for so long, but I can't imagine that during the past year, anyone has had much luck with renting out additional office space. Right. So I don't know if we can make any exceptions for that as far as the special use permit, considering the circumstances. But I agree. I was looking at this too earlier, and the fact that if it stays as an office and it's easier for them to actually rent it out, I think that's the best case scenario. I agree that that's a bit touchy when you take it over to changing it completely into a CBD, and then you end up with any kind of operation. You could end up with a gas station in the middle of a neighborhood. Would I not be right? I mean, it's there's different things, or a convenience store or something which would not be conducive to that neighborhood, which has been around for a long time. So I don't know either. I agree whether we should just receive and file this and move forward. But if we do that, and this is denying the change, is that going to deny any further work on it? I don't want to see that happen, because I think we should look into it as well.
We will work with the current tenant to make it an office and get him in there as special use.
Okay.
So we'll make sure the tenant who wants to make it offices gets in there. We'll make sure that administrative end.
And then we will work on trying to clean up our ordinance to address some of these issues like this.
Yeah, I'll send a directive to David tomorrow to have his team review it. I think he's already kind of taken a look at it. Some things that, they pop up and are in the intention of an ordinance versus how it actually plays out sometimes can be different. I think this is one of those situations.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Just for a point of clarification, Mayor, Dave,
Yes.
so someone, a familiar name of Kathy Holt has been there a long time in her residency. So that what James has described would be palatable to residents there, allowing what was there before.
Yes, if office use is, very restrictive, it tends to have lower traffic, not as an impact to, it doesn't have a great impact into the neighborhood. And I think that's the main concern is future uses that could cause
Okay,
an adverse impact into the neighborhood.
thanks. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we will take a vote on receiving and filing this communication. If it passes, that means that we concur with the planning commission. Go ahead, Cindy.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
No.
Councilmember Ruiz,
No,
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, the motion passes to receive and file it then. With the intent that we're going to move forward with looking into this, correct?
Yes, I'll have David and his team draft a memo of some possible remedies and get it to you.
Okay, thank you. We will move forward then into the category from the city manager. Then the first one, please.
Accepting the bid from Weed Man in the amount of $14,383 for lawn maintenance and weed control of various city-owned parks and properties.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, supported by Councilmember Mosherak. Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor, this is something we bid out on an annual basis. We have a local company here. We've checked their references. They did good work, and they were the low bidder.
Okay.
Disclaimer, I have a $300 a year contract with them to maintenance my own lawn. So I do have a contract with them. They do good work.
And so do I, so. Yeah, it seems like, yeah, it's, there's not that many of them out there, but
No.
anyways, any other discussion, questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
yes,
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes. I thought you
Mayor-
called me. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Number two,
Accepting the quote from Loxton Fence in the amount of $8,800 for the removal and installation of new fencing and gate at Sanborn Park.
is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there support? Councilmember Mosherak. Is there any questions, discussion?
Mayor, I wonder
Yes,
if
Councilman.
James could just tell us, there's a lot of fencing at Sanborn Park. Is this ball diamond area or tennis courts or what area are we talking for this?
All diamond area in the outfield where you would go and catch the ball and fall over it.
Gotcha.
So, and we will be using a wrap grant from our insurance company, and anything different, the college will be picking up. So no cost to us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
yes, Mayor Rep, James, the fencing that's there now, is it just that it needs replacement because of time and wear?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes,
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, item three,
Accepting the bid from Dick's Signs in the amount of $7,990 for the replacement of the Northern Woods sign.
is there a motion?
So move, support.
Who made the motion? Okay. Councilmember Pemberton, supported by Councilmember Ashford. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, and Council, this will be the most controversial item on your agenda, just because I want to give a little brief history here. Northern Woods is a city development where we developed the infrastructure and sold the lots. Once we sold the lots, we were out of the development. There is no homeowners association there. So this sign is located in the middle of essentially the road there on city right away. We've been mowing around it. We've been maintaining around it forever, but the sign has fallen into disrepair. As a rule, the city has not really replaced neighborhood signs like this that weren't in our CDBG target areas using CDBG funds. And so if doing this, if we replace this sign, it will be kind of out of the norm. So the question is, do we replace this sign? Do we replace the sign? Do we not replace the sign, or do we replace the sign with stipulation that the Northern Woods Association in the future should form an HOA and take on this responsibility going forward? I don't know. We had 2 quotes for this. This was the original company that put in the sign, and they were cheaper by about almost $2,000 from the next company. But so this is the Dick's Signs, actually built the original sign that was there, probably why they were cheaper than the original quote. So anyways, that's the brief history of that property. It's really kind of in a gray area that no one's taken responsibility for because it hasn't really needed significant maintenance until now, but we have been mowing around it since forever. So that's the best I get.
Yes, I would like to ask, because I know I brought this up to you earlier. You could be opening a whole precedence there for every neighborhood, including, I'll say, my own neighborhood. As Councilmember Mosherek knows and lives in the same neighborhood I live in, that all of the neighbors contributed to the sign. We did not come to the city and ask for money for the sign. And we've taken on the complete responsibility because it's not, and it's not on our property, it's on state property. So it's not like we own the property either, as in the case. I guess, I don't remember what arrangement was made way back when Northern Woods was built, but obviously we did as a city put in the infrastructure into the neighborhood and then sold off the lots, and people bought the lots and had a builder build their home. I don't recall there was ever a discussion that we would be continuous maintenance of the rest of the property and their sign. I don't know if did you get a chance to look and see if there was anything in the files, James? Because
we have not found anything. We're still looking, but we have not found anything that would put the responsibility on them, and nothing.
I guess I would be inclined to, and I'm not in that position as the chair of the meeting to do so, but I'm inclined to postpone action on it until we look into this further. And if we do this, there should be some type of an agreement. So that's my 2 cents worth, but I'm opening it up to anybody else who has something to say.
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Mosherek.
I just want to follow up with you saying with our subdivision, I know the 24 years that I've lived there, at least 3 times it's been replaced or repaired, and that was by the residents that lived in our own subdivision. We don't have a homeowners association either.
No.
We did a pitch-in effort or had people in our own neighborhood work on it, which a couple of us did, and I have before. I know there's a lot more houses in Northern Woods than there are in our subdivision, and I'm wondering maybe they could look into something like that, because I do think we open a large can of worms for every subdivision in the area, because, well, you did it for Northern Woods, why don't you do ours? And I could see people in our own subdivision saying the same thing. So that would be my concern for that. So until we look into it further, I would agree with you that we maybe put a hold on this, or however we need to file it, so that we can get some more information and see where it's at.
Because if you compare it to another subdivision that the city has done, would be, I just went Edison Shores, and we certainly don't do a sign for Edison Shores, yet that was a city-built subdivision as well. So
I think there's a key difference there that the Edison.
they do have
Shore-
condo.
Yeah, they have a condo association. This is, well, if you know where the Northern Woods sign is, it's in the middle of our boulevard.
Correct.
So there is some, and I also still looking to make sure, I think it's lit. I haven't been able to,
Yeah.
confirm. And it's, I believe we've been paying the electric bill on it as well.
I just don't, if I remember correctly, I think it was something that the homeowners wanted there after they were all there, but it was never part of the original agreement for the subdivision. That's what I would like to have checked out before we go any further. That's all. I just want to make sure we've got our Ts crossed, our Is dotted, nothing against their neighborhood.
Yeah,
So,
Absolutely.
Mayor, if that's the case, I'd like to move for, can we table it until such a time?
you should, if you're going to do it, you should postpone it, not table it, or it comes
Oh,
up
okay.
automatically at the
Well,
next one.
well,
So if you want to
yeah,
table it for the first meeting of May or something,
Yeah, postpone it until we get more information.
till we get more information, yeah.
Mhm.
Mayor Rapp,
Is there a second for her motion first?
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilmember Mosherek. Then we need to, yeah, continue. Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
I know this isn't not going to be received well probably, but I would take this one step further and I'm questioning why the city is not only maintaining and replacing a sign, but paying for the electricity and mowing again. And anywhere, I live in a neighborhood, we don't have a sign, it's not lit, you don't mow it. What stops us from coming up forward saying, well, then, you know what, we want one too. So I'm very concerned about that, but I'm wondering, this, it's great to build a neighborhood, but this long-term cost to the city, is that wise? And I would look to say, beyond even tabling it, unless there's an agreement somewhere that they create a homeowners association and they find a way, or they all, however you want to do it, but they find a way to maintain the sign, mow it, pay for the lighting. Then
So,
maybe don't have a sign.
so so I'll know for sure when we get confirmation through, this got thrown on us last weekend, the sign replacement. But we know that the streetlights are tied into our the lighting is tied into our streetlight system. So that would have to be separated off. But all indications are that this sign was probably funded with the craft TIF account. But that TIF fund, which was used to construct that development, has since been closed. So the original funding source, if this makes sense, and Pauline is just jogging in memories, I think it was the craft TIF fund. That TIF fund has now been closed. So the original funding source for the sign is gone. So it may be a time to approach the homeowners now.
Well, the thing of it is obviously I understand what Mayor Pro Tem Archibald is saying, but actually that is our property. So we, as far as mowing, unless we give the property to somebody else or sell it to the neighborhood, we do have an obligation to mow it because it is our property, correct, James?
Correct.
But we don't have an obligation, the way I see it, for the sign. But we do have an obligation to mow the lawn.
Mow the lawn.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, in a massive development like this is probably something they put a sign up and it's good for 30 years and deal with it then. And now this is the then, and it's kind of gray. So again, this is a policy discussion. I'll formalize our research to find out exactly how this is funded, but all indications are it's the craft TIF fund that has since been closed. And then I'll shoot you a memo. I can have it done in the next couple of days. I'll shoot you a memo and then you guys can decide what you want to do from there.
Okay.
And that'll give you some time as well to get some feedback from residents. So I'll get you that information as fast as I can so you have it in hand when you talk to residents.
Okay.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, Councilmember
James, how many
Ruiz.
signs, neighborhood signs do we have in the city?
Well, I have a ballpark, but a lot of the signs have been paid for with CDBG dollars in census tract neighborhoods that qualify. For instance, Harrison Point neighborhood. We did some Court Street signage, some Court Street and Union Street signage on the Old Town neighborhood. We've done some work in South Park using CDBG dollars for signage. I don't have a head count off the top, but it's been several.
But none of them have come out of general fund, correct?
Correct.
And this would have to come out of general fund monies.
Correct.
Yes, there's a difference there. Yes, Councilmember Mosherek.
Mayor, Councilmember Ruiz could probably answer this. I know close to where he lives, I'm not sure if it's called Riverside Terrace or what it is. But there's a triangle boulevard there with a kind of a subdivision sign. Does the city maintain that property there? Do you know?
So that's the
Councilmember Reed?
Riverside subdivision, and we did use some
Riverside
of our
sub, yeah.
community development dollars for that about a year or so ago. The neighborhood actually maintains all of that. So all of that flowers, all of that, I mean, it looks like a master
Yeah.
gardener does it. The whole neighborhood takes care of that property.
That's what I thought.
And they take very good pride in their neighborhood, and they actually brought a community petition forward last year. And the same way we did the Harrison Point neighborhood sign, we did it there as well.
Mayor,
Yes.
James, who maintains then the area around the Harrison Point sign? And then the second part of that is if and when it is in disrepair, then what? Will it be the city's obligation to replace that one as well?
If and when that sign is in disrepair, it'll either be taken down or we could look at using CDBG dollars again. As for the mowing of it, I don't want to speak out of turn, so let me find out. I believe it's in our road right away we mow it, but let me double check.
And so this sign would not qualify for CDBG then to be replaced?
Not in this census tract neighborhood, no.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has anything to add to this? If not, we do have a motion to postpone action until we get back a report from the administration. Is that correct, Councilmember Ashford, how you'd like to have it?
Yes.
Okay, and we did have a second.
Yes,
So-
and that's how I would like it. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
if there's nothing else, then we'll have the vote taken on that.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosher,
Yes,
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We will move on to item 4 under from the city manager.
Accepting the bid from Universal Consolidated Enterprise Incorporated in the amount of $185,938 for the LDFA site clearing of Dove Street parcels.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Councilmember Lamb, supported by Councilmember Mosher. I saw both hands go up. Is there any discussion on this?
Madam Mayor and Council, we received a $100,000 site readiness grant from the MEDC through the EPA. That is later on your council agenda. The idea behind this is when we have been negotiating with companies to come here, and I think Mayor Rep can speak to this as she's sat in a lot of C-suite meetings. They want to know, is the site shovel ready? How fast can we build? And the MEDC, when they shop businesses to come to communities, they want to show us literally a site that they can lock up in negotiations and begin construction on within 90 days. And so what this grant is for us to do is to clear the site, to level the site. We've already done a baseline environmental on it to get that site turnkey ready. So when we meet with manufacturers or potential job creators, we can show them a picture of this site and say it's clear, it's ready to be built, and you can build on it immediately. This gives us the upper hand in landing new companies to come to the city of Port Huron. So we're very lucky to receive this grant. The additional money will be funded out of the LDFA fund, and we will eventually recoup any money we get back. We invest in this property through the sale of this property.
Any questions from council? This is one of our last, this is like our last big piece of property, isn't it?
It is, and Mayor Reppin can tell you, we've gone to Auburn Hills, we've gone to different cities, and we've met with CEOs and their COOs to make the pitch report here on. And the question that the mayor and I get asked are, is this property ready to be built now? How fast can we start to build? And so it is one of our last 2 parcels. There's a smaller 8-acre parcel across the street that was pretty well cleared off that we own that's also ready for development. And this site is unique in the fact that it can hold 150 to 250,000 square foot plant. So it could be one of our largest job creators, and it has access to heavy utilities, heavy power, and rail.
Yeah. Any
So these
questions?
are two.
Oh, go ahead.
So, Mayor, yeah, so these are 2 sites or 1 site, James?
Well, it's 23 acres cumulatively And it's broken down between multiple parcels that all assemble a 23-acre parcel there.
Oh, okay, so that takes in the John L. Porter's one over there, that one, and then the one on Dove, correct?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
some of them. It doesn't clear every city property we own. To be
Right.
quite frank, there's some properties there that are near residential areas, and if it doesn't need to be cleared, then we're not going to. We want to get a square, buildable, all contiguous property that's site ready, shovel ready, that we can market.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
This
We'll
will
take them.
correspond with the EDA grant further on in your packet.
Right.
Okay.
We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, we'll move on to resolutions. Number 1, please.
Authorizing 14 payments.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Ashford. Is there any questions or comments on the payments? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 2.
Approving the agreement with the Economic Development Alliance of St. Clair County for the disbursements of grant funds from the EDA to the city of Port Huron.
Is there a motion?
So move.
So move.
Councilmember Mosherak, I think Councilmember Lamb spoke in there as a second, so is there any discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Number 3.
Approving the agreement with PM Blog Incorporated for professional construction administrative services for the McMorran Place Plaza improvements.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
Councilmember Ashford, supported by Councilmember Pemberton. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor and Council, the McMorran Commission has done an excellent job of value engineering down the cost of the plaza to be within our budget, within a reasonable amount within our budget. The notice of proceed has been issued to the contractor, but as we always hire a professional overseer of that, Pam Blau is done remarkable work for the city. She's currently overseeing the Lighthouse Beach project. She's done numerous projects throughout the county and throughout the state. She does excellent work on this. And so this contract for $13,110 will be for her to oversee the actual construction, which will begin immediately. And hopefully we'll get this done in early summer, middle of summer, to get this McMorran project complete. So she's done an excellent job in the design. She's done many revisions. She was very instrumental in the bringing the cost down by doing some value engineering, thinking out of the box. So appreciate her work, and I appreciate the work of the hard work of the McMorran Commission, and of course, Rob Churchill and Nancy Windsor for bringing this to fruition. And this is the final piece to make this happen.
When is it going to happen?
Possible. Any day.
What?
Any day. Construction will start within a couple weeks, if not sooner.
Okay. I see that snow fence around it all for the past months on ends.
Well, that's
It'd be nice to
permanent
see
decorative
something
fencing.
happen.
We like the orange. We're gonna keep.
Yeah,
the
I think
snow
so.
fencing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see something done before summer months and people are visiting our community, we hope.
Correct.
So is there any questions, comments?
Yeah, just briefly. So James, this is a whole different redesign from what we had seen before that was brought before the council.
No, in fact, it's incredibly similar. The water features, the stage, just small things like where they put the water features, reduce infrastructure cost. They, instead of a permanent ice arena, it'll be a portable ice rink that can be removed. The chillers will be there, but the ice rink can be rolled out, which actually allows us to maybe even move it around the city if we want to. But in concept, relatively same design. I think if Councilmember Archibald, she played a key role in that, wants to talk about it.
I was just going to ask her if she wanted to say anything.
Yeah, I'd be
will.
glad to hear it. Yeah.
Changes. So the primary changes in the design are we're moving the fire pit from out near the road into what we're calling the beer garden up closer to the building. And as Jim said, the fountain was very expensive as much as we tried. We tried everything to keep that linear fountain feature to run up the sidewalk as you're entering up towards our big fountain now. And that just wouldn't work. So we have moved that and are changing it to a circular fountain splash pad that will be where the fire pit used to be. A couple of the other minor changes is the really fancy overhead for the stage. That canopy, we've downgraded that canopy into something a little bit more affordable. We'll look to down the road once it's done, possibly find another funder or someone when it needs replacing to do something on a more permanent level. It's all very minor things. And then really the ice rink that James talked about and deciding to go with, and rather than a permanent one, the infrastructure of that was extreme. We also started realizing down the road as these changes kept coming forward was that the idea of having the removable one made that space much more versatile. So we can do so many more things with it without having all of that permanent infrastructure and that ice rink there. So all of the changes ended up being really good. At first, we all kind of balked at it and we didn't want to do that. But then as we sat down and really explored those changes, it allows us to do some other things that we think will be more beneficial to the public. It would allow us to use it in a lot more different and versatile ways. And in the end, with what they've come up with, we think we have every bit as good, if not a better product for the community at much lower cost.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would just like to commend you because you're not wasting the seasons. You got 4 seasons usage, so we don't have to, take a breath or breather to come back. So it's a continuous flow, year round. So I think that is key.
Mayor and Council,
Nice job.
I also uploaded into the chat box, so the attendees and you can all see is the final design. It's there for you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had to figure out how to do it. That's embarrassing to admit, but I figured it out. Took me a second.
We'll probably have this all figured out about the time we stop doing this.
Yes.
Anyways, we'll take the vote on this item.
Madam Mayor, just real quick, I do have Nancy Windsor on if anyone has a question for her.
Does anyone have any questions for Nancy? So you waited long enough, Nancy. You don't have to answer any questions.
Perfect. I'm good at that.
Good
Mayor
job.
Rep,
Yes.
I have one question for Nancy. Would you mind getting some peanut M&Ms in your candy dish here? I'm sitting in your office doing my Zoom, so those are my favorite. So you could have those for
Those
next
always go
meeting.
first. The fire chief eats them all. He was really, I gotta get more.
There you
Nancy,
go.
I don't have a question, but I'm glad to see we're moving on this, okay?
Yeah, yes, me too.
Yeah,
It's
a
been
long
a,
time coming.
yeah, as Councilmember Archibald, it's been hair-raising experience, but we're getting to the finish line and we're super excited.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mary,
guys.
since Nancy's on, before you hang up, Nancy,
Yeah.
since she's on, I would like to take a moment just to really commend Nancy for all the work she's done. You have no idea how many times she has had to go back and get new drawings and changes and go seek more funding and change funding. And it, literally, when she calls it Harry, it was all on her. And it wasn't always easy, but we would throw things back at her. We didn't like it. We wanted this change, we wanted that change. And she rose to the occasion until she finally came up with something that everybody agreed to. And it wasn't easy on her. So I want to say thank you. And I want to commend Nancy for the great job that she's done. I think the community is going to love what they see when it's finished. And so Nancy, thank you for all your hard work.
And thank you for your help. It was almost a giant sandbox with the orange fencing. It would have been an innovative play area for all the poor kids. So thank you, Councilman Archibald, for your help as well.
Thank you. We can take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosher,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 4.
Approving the 10-year lease agreement with St. Clair County Community College to lease the Sanborn Park baseball field.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Lamb, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. I get to choose when you both put your hands up together. Is there any questions or discussions on this?
Madam Mayor and Council, we have currently under a 3-year lease with SC4. Things have been going well. By doing the 10-year lease, they're going to invest in new bleachers and new scoreboard. Also in the agreement is we made them at my request to commit to holding all home games at that field. So I didn't want that to end up being a practice field or something else. So they have committed that will be their primary field and all home games will be played there.
Okay.
Mayor,
And yes,
I
Councilmember Ruiz.
just want to thank James for doing that and making sure that was a solid deal, because I think it's a beautiful ballpark. It's, I think it compares with any other one they're going to find, and I'm glad they're going to invest in it. 10 years is good to have that as a solid thing. So thank you.
Mayor Rep,
Any other questions? Councilmember
Mayor Rep.
Rose Mosher.
just a quick comment. I was over and watched the ball game over the weekend with some of the nice weather. There was a great crowd out there. So I commend James too for holding them to keeping it there. And hopefully people will get out and attend some of the games, check it out, because it is a beautiful park. So thanks for that.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, we will take the vote.
Councilmember Mosher,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 5.
Authorizing the Director of Public Works to commit and purchase salt through the State of Michigan My Deal Extended Purchasing Program for the 2021-22 season.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
There we go. We got it again. Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Lamb. Is there any discussion? How does this compare to previous year?
Pretty comparable. We'll bid it out. I'll get you a formal price, but this just allows us to use their
Yeah.
program and put our order in. But I can get that for you when we get those
When you
numbers.
get the price? Okay.
Yes, just for full transparency, although you're voting on this tonight, the deadline was a week or so ago. And if we would not have signed it, we would not have been able to purchase the state program. So I did direct and authorize the DPW director to give My Deal our preliminary signature with this formalizing it tonight. So we
Okay.
didn't want to miss out on that bidding opportunity.
Okay. Is there any questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 6.
Approving the application for an obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate extension for 306-310 Huron Avenue for 8 years per the State of Michigan Property Tax Exemption Section.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, supported by Councilmember Pemberton. Is there any discussion on this?
Madam Mayor, nothing's changing. It's just that the grocery store project between COVID and financing was delayed. And so they
Right.
couldn't take advantage of the first 2 years of their 6-year. So all we're doing is taking that 2 years and just adding it to the back end of the 6 years to make it 8 years. So they really do get the full impact. We do have precedents for this. We did it with City Flats Hotel. I believe we did it for another property downtown. I think it was
Right.
one of the lofts downtown. So that's all it is. Nothing's changing, and that thing is well under construction. Huge success story for downtown, but that's all we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, item 7, please.
Approving the additional cost from Boel Contracting LLC in the amount of $18,970 for unanticipated abatement costs, including asbestos removal in an underground oil tank while demolishing the properties located at 903, 905, 907, and 909 Poplar Street, and 904, 906, 908, 910, 910 and a half 10th Avenue.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
I mean,
Councilmember Mosherak, supported by Councilmember Ashford.
Madam
Is there
Mayor,
any-
Council,
Yes.
I would just say in March of last year, you voted to approve the demolition of this building. This just goes to reaffirm that that was the right decision. Those folks in that neighborhood should not have to deal with this property and this contamination next to their homes. So that's kind of affirmation that that decision you made on the 23rd of March last year was the right decision to make. And these will be using CDBG funds.
Thank you. Is there any further comments, questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, item 8.
Authorizing the extension of the City of Port Huron income tax filing deadline from April 30, 2021 to June 1st, 2021, and authorizing taxpayers to defer City of Port Huron income tax payments due on April 30th, 2021 to June 1st, 2021, without penalties and interest.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Lamb. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, as you know, we have Representative Beeler tonight here. This is an issue he's tackling as well to codify this in the law. But this just goes to help our residents, and it will provide really nothing operationally. It's not going to affect us in any way.
Good. Any discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, item 9.
Approving the expansion of the Port Huron Social District to Union Street for consideration by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Lamb. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Mosherak.
I'm just curious, James, was there a particular restaurant or bar that requested this, or what's the reasoning for the expansion?
No, excellent. Actually, it's because of a lot of the new businesses that are down there, like the Foundry, which has been doing some really incredible work and events, some art events. They have a large piece of property there. The Old Powers Diner is looking at possibly getting a beer license as well. And it's really about, we want to make sure that the restaurants and businesses can feel the benefits of having the Foundry, the former Gallery 1219, and those events downtown. So we want people to, and it also allows Pompeii's to really service the Foundry as well. So the Foundry is becoming, and it's becoming very organic in its own little art culture and group there. They've done some really impressive events there. Carol Hall, who's been running it, is doing an excellent job. And we really want to support those efforts and allow them and that property to feel the benefits of the social district as well. So that's really the driving factor behind it.
Good. That's what I was hoping, and thanks for clearing that up. But I hope other people will take advantage of that because it's a neat program that we've worked out. So thanks for answering. Appreciate it.
Anyone else have any questions, discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosher,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, we'll move to ordinances number 1.
First reading, an ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 1 in general and Article 4 general and supplementary regulations of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances to regulate medical marijuana home occupations within the city of Port Huron.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Pemberton. Could you give us a little background on the reasons for this, please? And I see David's back with us, so I think he's probably going to explain it. You're muted, David.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Mayor and council, this is coming out of an issue that we're having not only in our neighborhoods, but also in commercial districts where the under the caregiver marijuana distribution through the state of Michigan, it allows a lot of latitude to the caregiver and where they can grow and how they are regulated. And up until about a year or so ago, there were no regulations in place governing how this use and activity was to take place. What we're running into is we're having particular rental property, people extending electrical lines into apartment bedrooms and establishing grow operations. And under the Medical Marijuana Act, they are completely protected. So we were not able to inspect and ensure that these type of uses were safe and conducive to the house. We're also running into trouble with commercial locations where people are subdividing the interiors of commercial spaces and then leasing them out to individual grow operations, to caregivers, thereby circumventing our entire process for having the growing licensure within the city. Last year, the Supreme Court ruled that municipalities have the right to regulate how caregiving operations, how they can be managed. And we looked at several communities and working with Al Francis and Todd Schauty at Fletcher's Law Office. We selected Ypsilanti as our model. And that's what you see before you is model language that has been utilized in other communities, and hopefully giving us the tools then that we can go in and ensure that we have a proper and safe location, while at the same time allowing the medical caregiver to provide the services to the patients. But first we have to make sure that we have a safe environment, and this helps to establish that.
Okay. Any questions about this from anyone? No questions. Okay, well then we will move forward and take the vote.
Councilmember Mosher,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. That concludes our agenda. A couple things. First off, thank you, Cindy, for doing the meeting tonight and saving James and the rest of us from him, seeing as you're off and you still had to work. So thank you very much for doing that. And also, if everybody, if they haven't already, don't forget, we do need to have a special meeting in May. At our next meeting, we will be receiving the budget and scheduling our budget public hearing for May 10th. But right after that and before the following meeting, we need to have our budget workshop for the council. So if everyone could let Cindy know what dates they might be available during that period of time after May 10th, but before May 24th. And we usually don't hold them on a Friday or anything. So skip that day of the week and just see what other dates you might be available and let Cindy know, and we'll come up with a consensus of everybody. And that would be very helpful. Also, I'd like to wish our Mayor Pro Tem a happy birthday today.
Thank you.
Oh,
You are welcome. Here you get to spend your birthday with doing a council meeting. So
People, right?
I know, I know. Does anyone else have anything else? Well, then is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Ashford. The meeting is adjourned.